Doing the rounds there this morning. Thanks for joining us, Ted. Is it busy?
G'day, Bill. No, great to be with you. Yeah, I've just been on a booth in Nambour, actually, so just ducked back into the car from where I'm speaking to you now. So it's busy here. It was crazy busy yesterday. It probably helps that it's a beautiful blue sky and the sun is shining, so people are making the most of getting out there and getting their vote in.
Well, I'm glad that you're speaking to us when you're out on doing this work at pre-polls, because it seems Monique Ryan yesterday, the Teal, didn't want a bar of it. She said she wouldn't be talking at pre-polling. It was interrupting what she was doing. I don't know if you've seen and heard any of that.
No, I haven't heard that. But look, I mean, the Teals, I find, are suddenly being held accountable. They haven't been held accountable for a long time, and now people are asking questions, and it's no surprise they run for cover.
That was exactly the point.
Greens in disguise.
Yep.
And so, now that that's been called out, a lot of them don't want to front a camera or a microphone.
And that was the bad look that happened yesterday. It was purely Laura Jay's trying to ask a couple of simple questions, and it was pretty much a no comment. But what are people saying to you out and about in the booths?
Oh, look, it's a bit of a mix. I think most people I speak to as they're coming through, they're just not happy, despite it being beautiful weather, as I said before. People aren't happy. They're just doing it tough. You do get the odd person who wants to have a very specific policy conversation, and that can be on any portfolio area. But the vast majority of people, they're just bewildered as to why things are so tough. And the government, the Albanese government, just isn't addressing the cause of these problems, including energy.
Yeah.
It's all the most they can do is it's giveaways. They're not tackling the real problems that are leading to a cost of living crisis, Bill.
You've been the subject of a few protests in your electorate. Over the weekend, residents gathered, I think, at Coolum Beach to protest against nuclear. Have you encountered any protesters at these pre-polling booths that have been particularly outspoken?
No. You get the odd person in a teal T-shirt who will vocally have a go. A lot of them really are Greens anyway. There are very few Greens volunteers up here, and that's because most of them have donned a teal T-shirt instead. And the protest over Easter weekend, it was just a political stunt. And that was obvious because they were all wearing their T-shirts. So you had the red T-shirts of Labor and the Greens out there and the Teals all, protesting. So, and that's their right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
go for your life if you want to protest, but at the end of the day, the real issue is Australians are paying among the highest electricity prices in the world, and the Coalition's the only party which has a policy which will get gas prices down in the short term before we bring nuclear in as part of a balanced energy mix over the long term.
Well, the big nuclear energy plan, it's barely been cited this election, I've got to say. Peter Dutton doesn't really want to talk about it. He won't visit the proposed locations for the power plants. Why is that? Why are we not hearing more about it?
Well, Bill, we're talking about it every day, including Peter, by the way. And, Peter's been to definitely a few of the sites. I was up there and, at Callide with him. And so, he's been out and about, as have I. I think the big thing about the nuclear plan that we have is, yes, it's, we're talking about 10 years away before it gets introduced. And so it's not the short term, right? And our short-term focus is an East Coast gas reservation scheme so we can prioritise gas for the Australian people, working with renewables and not closing our coal plants prematurely. So that's our plan for the short term, and that's the real focus. But on nuclear, the big story over the campaign is Labor is lying. So if you go to your polling booths even today, you'll often see Labor will have these signs up saying that the Coalition's nuclear plan will cost $600 billion, which is an absolute lie. They know it's a lie. It's a figure that comes from a renewables lobby group, which is in bed with the Labor Party. And the last election, Bill, Labor took a lie to the Australian people. They promised a $275 reduction in household power bills. It was a lie. This election, they're going to the Australian people with another lie, but this lie is about the coalition's plan. So they can't be believed, and ultimately, though, it's going to be up to the Australian people. My ask is reject the lie. If they meet any Labor candidate or MP that says $600 billion, look them in the eye and call them out for lying.
Well, you're pretty clear on it.
Pick a fight with a political party, but not don't lie to the Australian people.
Yeah, well, you're as clear as day there on that. In the debate last night, Peter Dutton said nuclear's $331 billion price tag was difficult to explain in a 10-second soundbite. And now, of course, we famously know John Hewson had the same issue trying to explain his GST plan back in 1993's campaign. Is it a failure of messaging thus far rather than policy?
Oh, look, I'll let commentators sort of judge how messaging has gone, Bill. Reality is $331 billion is the cost of the whole kit and caboodle for the national electricity market. So gas, coal, renewables, nuclear, poles and wires. But if you did want a 10-second comment on it, the coalition's plan is 44% cheaper than Labor's plan. It will deliver cheap, clean and consistent energy for all Australians. That's the real outcome people care about.
All right. But that figure's assuming a smaller economy and energy requirements than what Labor have factored in, isn't it?
No, it doesn't. And again, this is another just a big fat lie from the Labor Party. What it does, it assumes that we don't need to overbuild the electricity grid. So Labor thinks, for example, that every single one of your listeners must be driving an EV by 2050, or the next 25 years. That's it. That's the only thing you can do is drive EVs. There will be no other vehicles on the road. Labor also thinks that green hydrogen is going to replace gas. It's going to be our baseload power source. That's not happening. So what they've done is they've made these magical predictions of the future, none of which is coming to life. And they're saying we need to overbuild the electricity grid to accommodate that. But every time you overbuild something, you've got to pay for it.
Yeah.
That's why your electricity bills just keep going up. And so the economy will be bigger and stronger under a coalition. It's always been our strong suit because we know that the only way you can help people is a strong economy. The only way you can have better public services is a strong economy, better hospitals, strong economy, better roads, strong economy, which is why the coalition is always focused on the economy, and energy is the economy. Yet, unless we can get energy costs under control, we can't have a strong economy. And that's why, under Peter Dutton's leadership, that's our focus as a coalition. Good
question from Anne on the text line to speak to what you just mentioned there. She said, can you ask Ted to please show us the true cost of Labor's green energy policies as a comparison and its life expectancies? Because we don't hear a lot about that.
Really good question from Anne, Bill. Anne, the answer is, compared to our approach to 2050 of $331 billion for the electricity market, under Labor, it will be $600 billion. $600 billion. Now, that excludes, by the way, behind the meters. All the stuff you do at home, you put solar on your roof, you buy a battery, that excludes all of that. Once you add all of that in, it is well over $1 trillion. And that's just to 2050, because you've got to remember that a lot of the assets, a lot of the renewables that Labor is relying on, because they have only a renewables policy, nothing else, all eggs in one basket. Those assets, those big facilities, they have to be replaced. Now, sometimes that might be 15 years, other times 20 years, other times 25 years. So you just have to keep rebuilding another grid.
Yeah, so, perhaps this is why we're not seeing a lot of Chris Bowen, because he doesn't like being pinned down on a number.
No, well, Chris Bowen, I mean, again, this just comes back to the big dishonesty, right? The only number Chris Bowen can say right now is the lie of $600 billion about the coalition's plan. He can't talk about his own plan because, I mean, think about it. We've got the Australian government, with all of its resources, cannot tell the Australian people the cost of its energy plan. But just for the national electricity grid on the East Coast alone, once you add in the behind-the-meter stuff, it is way over $1 trillion, which is why today we're paying among the highest prices in the world, and it's only started.
Yeah.
Nobody, even the Prime Minister, nobody on Labor has suggested they've got a hope in hell of getting prices down. So Australia will become poorer, weaker and more dependent on foreign supply chains if we keep going down the path that Labor has set.
Just a quick one off that topic before I let you go. More voters seem to be looking, and it shows up in polls, for independents, or they're undecided, or for minor parties, because they don't seem to have trust with Labor or the coalition that they're getting told the truth. Do you think truth in political advertising laws would help rebuild a bit of that trust?
Well, look, when it came to a lot of the laws that were looked at in this term of government, certainly Labor ignored any possibility of having truth in political advertising, which is why they're trying to, again, lie to the Australian people and win an election off the back